So this week I thought it might be useful to talk to you about renting property in Mauritius and the process that's involved with rentals. I've lived here now for over 6 years and I've lived in, if you can believe it, 7 different properties. So I thought maybe it's time to share some of my experience with you. So that's coming right up. So you finally decided to come and live in Mauritius, and whether you're here for a long period or for a short stay, you are more than likely going to rent some property. So what exactly is involved in this? Well, the first thing I would recommend is to find out exactly where it is you would like to live, and then find out what sort of budget you have and what sort of property you'd like. So first off, let's talk about some of the common areas that are very popular with expats. So that would be the north, that would be Grand Bay and Peribere, and then the west. You've got Black River, Tamarin, and maybe you could sneak a little bit down southwest to Le Morne. So the first thing I did when I was actually still living abroad is I looked online, and there are a couple of sites. I'm going to leave links in the description below so you can look at them, but I'll mention them anyway. There's Property Cloud and there's also L'Express Property. Those are the 2 biggest ones that I would recommend. And then also Facebook is also a fantastic place to look for properties. And maybe you know someone who's renting a place. And then the other way that I would do it is I would go through an agent. I find these sites are really good because they give you a really good example of what you're likely to pay, and also what houses tend to look like, what sort of value for money you're going to get in the particular regions. Now, Mauritius, depending on where you live, of course, houses will vary, as will rent. So yeah, there is a disparity, and it all depends on your budget and what you're willing to pay, but there is pretty much something for everyone out there. So once you've found a place that you think you would like to rent, the best option if you are already on the island would be to phone or email or meet up directly with the agent, because then they will show you around and you'll get to see the place firsthand. Now, my top tip is to look at the place. Do not do what I did. Basically, I found a place online when I wasn't even living in the country. And then when we got here and we moved into the place, it wasn't quite what we expected it to be. So yeah, if you can, definitely arrive here first and look at places firsthand, because then you'll know exactly what you're getting yourselves into. Now, going through an agent for a lot of people might be a good option because it takes the stress out of finding a place. Very often if you ring them up or you email them, they'll send you a whole list of potential places, and then you'll be able to go and view them with them and perhaps bargain on the price as well. Usually what happens then is if you find a place that you like, you'll sign a rental agreement or a lease agreement, and this is usually valid for 12 months. Very, very rarely you can find short-term leases, like sort of 6-month leases. But in my 6 years on this island, I have found that generally people want to sign you in for 1 year. Now, usually when you take a place, you pay a 1-month deposit and then you pay the rent. And usually the deposit is the same amount as the rent. And hopefully at the end of your 12-month or your, in certain very rare instances, your 6-month stay, you will get back that deposit. Utility bills, things like water, electricity, internet, those will all be paid for by you. Those are all separate bills that you will have to settle yourself. In all of those cases, I found, like for example with Mauritius Telecom, which is the major internet provider here, I would actually physically have to go there every month and pay the bill there. What I will say is that most of the places I have rented, in fact, pretty much all of the places I have rented bar one, have been through an agent. But what I find tends to happen is you deal with the agent at first, you sign the lease, you pay your deposit, and then pretty much you're kind of on your own. You then are left to deal directly with the landlord or the landlady. So this means it's a good idea to meet them personally, face to face, and then you can get a good idea of whether this person is going to be a nice person to work with or whether you're going to have a bit of a tough, torrid time. Generally, I'd say that most people are really lovely, and we've actually had very few problems here with rentals, with landlords, and with agents as well. Now the other thing is, if you're going to be using an agent, there will more than likely be an agent's fee as well. So you're going to have a think about that too, because then there'll be the agent's fee, the 1 month deposit, plus the 1 month's rent, which you will have to pay. So obviously it's in your interest, if you can find a place either through a friend or maybe on Facebook, then you'll only have to pay a deposit and then the rent. So that'll just make things a little bit economically more viable, should I say. The other thing that's very important to look at is whether or not a place is furnished or not. Now, although most places are furnished or semi-furnished, it is possible to find places that are unfurnished. If you do find a place which is furnished and you feel like, oh my goodness, this is my dream spot, I really, really would like to ask the landlord or the agent to get rid of the furniture, do not feel shy to ask. We have done that and it worked for us. We thought that they would never agree to taking all the furniture out, but it did work for us. So it's absolutely worth opening your mouth and seeing if you can take a place which is furnished and take it unfurnished. The other thing, in Mauritius, most people use gas. So that'll be gas for cooking and maybe even gas for your shower. So you'll have these big gas bottles. They'll either be blue or red. You can get them at places like London Way Supermarket or at some of the petrol stations. So just remember to budget for that as well as your water and your electricity. You're more than likely going to need some form of gas. Some houses also have solar heating, so those will be solar panels on the roof, and that works out quite well because then obviously your gas bill will be less. The other thing is, try and negotiate for an apartment or a villa if it has a garden and a pool. Try and negotiate to have that cost of the pool person and the gardener included in the rent. You shouldn't be paying for that over and above what you're paying for the rent. Generally, if you sign a 12-month contract, you have the first 3 months to then get out of it, and then at the 9-month mark you need to decide whether you want to renew or whether you want to cancel that lease agreement. So it just gives you both a bit of leeway. Once your rental agreement is over and say, for example, you decide to move, you don't want to renew that contract, then you will get your 1 month deposit back, providing everything in the house is pretty much as it was when you arrived. Of course, there's a little leeway for wear and tear because, you know, things happen, but generally you should be getting your full deposit back. Now, the other thing I should mention is there has been quite a big influx of people coming to the island now that it's open and this pandemic seems to be behind us. So there is a little bit of a shortage in stock here. So what I find tends to happen is you might look online, find a place, think fantastic, arrive in Mauritius, try and call around to see that exact place, and then realize that it's actually been taken some 3 months ago. I find very often the websites are not refreshed as well or updated as well as they could be. So my advice to you would be to email an agent, phone an agent, or if you're actually here, go and physically see that agent or that landlord. So those are my top tips for you regarding renting property on this island. If you are thinking about moving out here and you want to know a little bit more, I have partnered now with a relocation specialist, so do email me and I can pass on your details. Also, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And if you like, buy me a coffee because it helps me to keep this channel alive. Anyway, lots of other videos for you to watch. I have nearly 150 videos all about Mauritius, so do consider checking out my playlists, and I will check you on the next one. See ya.